Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Sports Hub podcast, where we hope to bring you discussion and debate on the past week's sporting events and topics, and hopefully having a laugh on the way. How are we all doing?
Good, yeah, good.
All good.
We're all looking forward to tonight.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Be a good chat.
I think it'll be quite good, and I'm quite opinionated, so this is a great forum.
The troll opinionated is an understatement, Robert. So the first topic that we've got tonight is the lockdown and its effects. Entering 2021, first month gone, and I don't think anyone expected it to be the way it's been, especially considering the 9 months or so we had in 2020 with the coronavirus. It's been going on for a very long time, and it's obviously impacted everyone's life, but especially sporting activities and such. And Martin, I know you were keen to discuss the lockdown effect on sports. Do you want to kick us off with this?
There's a few things about it that's made it a bit more interesting. There's obviously the no crowds as a massive thing. I quite like the aspect of actually hearing what the manager's shouting. Most of the time it's no swearing, but and a lot of the teams and the players play differently in front of a lesser crowd. There was games earlier in the season where it went to penalties, and like hardly any penalties were missed because they just not got the crowds to put the pressure on them. And all the teams are performing differently. Like there's obviously Scotland, Celtic aren't performing very well. A lot of that could be down to not having crowds or just being pissed. What's everybody's thoughts on that? James, do you think Celtic are feeling the benefit or not feeling the benefit of not having the crowds?
Well, it's hard to say that Celtic's feeling the benefit of anything at the moment, but the crowd factor is definitely in play. Celtic, in recent years with the success, quadruple treble, I must say, have benefited from a feel-good factor in the stadium, even when games were boring. The fans were behind the team, knowing that a victory was most likely to come. Whereas on the other side of the city, the pressure was on. They were having to stop 10 in a row. And as we saw at the end of last season, when the pressure turned up at Ibrox, the team started struggling on the pitch. And I do think this season with fans, I don't think the way that Celtic's been playing, the gap wouldn't be close. Celtic still wouldn't be top of the table, but the gap would have been closer. And with the pressure of stopping the 10, would Rangers have felt the heat more with the fans. So I think Rangers have benefited this season more than Celtic have lost because there's Celtic fans not being there.
You also had Celtic missing out early. Those had to miss a couple of games. They're always playing catch up from there.
Oh yeah, but that was the stupidity of a player. So yes. That's nothing to do with fans. That's Celtic, a balling goalie, just putting more pressure on the club.
So what,
James? When?
Yes, Bruce.
James, when you're when you're a club that's at the top of the, flying high like Celtic have been, and you're riding on for your 10 in a row season. Should you really need the fans there spurring you on, or should there be internal drivers that you're looking for within that team, to spur on and push on for that accolade?
I definitely think that should be the case. Celtic fans are a great asset to the team, the renowned fan set over the world, particularly the European nights. But in such a big season for Celtic, 10 in a row, the manager should definitely get the message across, and the players should be turning up every game. And the fact that they haven't raises a lot of questions, which I don't think has to come down to the fan topic. So we'll keep the topic on this.
Yeah, so the not just Celtic, there's a lot of other teams that are, you can see it in some of the games where they're maybe 2-1 down, and usually at that point the fans are trying to force a team forward, and you just see teams passing side to side and pushing for goals. Mitchell, what do you think about the lockdown, like the televised side of lockdown?
I think what you've said there is right. Like you see some teams, like you notice, like I think earlier today you see West Ham against Liverpool. When the first goal went in, okay, West Ham won the stadium, isn't the greatest atmosphere. But as soon as the first goal went in for Liverpool, West Ham kind of just resigned themselves. This is how it's going to go. Whereas with the fans, you'd expect a little bit of, okay, now we kick on, we fight back. And to go with it, like not having fans, being a Chelsea fan, you look at the Lampard, I'd say you look at Lampard sacking. If the stadium's full, especially especially playing Luton and winning, I don't think the board would have had the courage to sack him if the fans were chanting his name in the stands that day. Because I think many fans still have his backing and feel he should have given him a lot more time.
Well, there's obviously been clubs that haven't benefited from lockdown, but Bob, do you think it's helped Rangers in any way, not having the fans on their back?
Yeah, I think it has. I think historically the amount of expectation has been massive on Rangers, and I don't think that's helped the team perform really. Last season they absolutely crumbled after Christmas, and I think that was down to the expectation. I think no fans has been good for Rangers, and I actually hope that it continues because, well, for this season anyway. If they came back, would the team be able to deal with that? I don't know. I don't know. And in fact, I'd probably say no. And the reason I say no is because they've proven that they can't. So if prior evidence is anything to go by, then I don't think they'd be able to handle the fans being there. Yeah.
I think there's also sort of individual players as well where you think, I don't know, Shane Duffy might be a great player when he's playing in front of fans. It's hard to see.
No.
Nah. What's
wrong player to choose, I think.
What do you think, Gav? Have you've seen a lot of football during the lockdown? Has it helped the attacking players more to get on the ball and try to get at players without the fans getting on their back?
I think first of all I agree with what you're saying, Martin, that it's good from a fan's perspective to sit and hear the instructions given to the sidelines, the players communicating with each other while playing, even between the referee and the players, like the Rob Holding when Arsenal and Wolves were playing, and Rob backed into, or Adama Traore backed into Rob Holding, and he hit the deck, and the referee blew a whistle for a foul, and Rob Holding turns around and says, "How do you call that a foul? He's built like a brick shithouse." It's like you wouldn't normally get that in a packed stadium. I do think that there's not a home advantage now because of the fans not being there. But with what you're saying about the attacking players, I think it's given the attacking players a bit more confidence to try that extra flick or the wee skill move to try and beat the defender. But at the same time, there's no one pressuring them. So you're seeing like what we've already said tonight, a lot of sideways passing, backwards passing, because there's not that pressure from the fans to go and get that extra goal, get themselves back in the game, or if you're on the other side, you're trying to hold on to a lead, push for the kind of comfortable 2-goal cushion. But I think we were saying about individual players, there's been a lot of players who have used this to their benefit. A lot of younger players have came through the ranks in many teams, and I think in terms of it's going to keep going. I think for the foreseeable, I can see there's still been a lot of surprise results. No team has been able to find that form and keep the results going for a long period of time. There's been a lot of surprising results over the past season. I think everyone would agree with that.
Yeah, I think even if you look at kind of like Aston Villa and Leeds and West Ham and teams like that, like doing really well at the start of the season, maybe the kind of lack of fans helped them. Maybe, don't know.
I think it's funny to see the one thing you said there, Gavin, about the not being a home or away advantage anymore. there's actually a lot of the teams are performing better away from home now than they are at home.
I seen a stat on that, and I think it was something like Livingston or one of the sort of teams that you would consider smaller, had the best away record that they've had in however many years. It was quite interesting. It makes you wonder what the home advantage is, and it is all down to the crowds, really.
I think it's been. Oh, sorry, on you go.
Right, go, Gav.
I was going to say, I think it's been quite a trying an adaptation period to try and get used to. A lot of teams kind of struggled at the back end of last season when lockdown was introduced, but then because they kind of got used to it, this season it's been a lot more of they've been more used to it. So like the documentary on Amazon Prime, the All or Nothing with Villa and Spurs. I watched that recently. It was really interesting to see their take on it all and how they adapted and they moved. Obviously, they got their new stadium. They moved into the NFL. Locker rooms was much more space. They were all spaced out, so still adhered to social distancing, even though they're in the bubble. So there's also that other aspect of it that the fans don't get to see. And the players have had to do a lot of adapting to it, play a lot more games closer in a tighter schedule, which is, I think, again, as I pointed out on the younger players coming through, that's enabled them to get the appearances and get the opportunities to play. So I don't think it's been a completely bad thing for football.
See, when you're talking about players adapting to it as well, there's I listened to a little bit on the radio about the Chelsea players. So there's a few of the Chelsea players who recently signed and they've just not quite hit the ground running. But it must be extremely difficult for them because they've came to a new country, they can't mingle, they're struggling to have a look at the house, they're in a bubble. And it must be one of the hardest times to actually go to a new club. What sort of players do you think are going through that at Chelsea, Gav?
I think the two biggest ones is Havertz and Werner. I don't think you can defend it in any way. I think I would say Werner's coming through a little bit more. He's getting a lot more touches, a bit more confidence, but he's still struggling. Same with Havertz, and I think that's a lot of Chelsea fans' hope of Tuchel coming in, is that he'll manage to use his German influence and with them being German also and help them kind of come through. But it's one of these things that, is it just an adaptation period? Every player, when they move club, normally takes the time to adapt, or is it something bigger in terms of the crowds not being there? Does that have an influence on how well they play? Granted, if the crowds were there, I wouldn't think that Havertz and Werner in particular, the two of them, would have been getting as many minutes as they have been.
No.
Because the fans would be right on their back at any team when a new signing's not playing well, especially when there's been a lot of money spent.
But then I think that might actually push them to perform better because obviously the crowds are right at the back. Do you know what I mean?
On the other side, that's a good point. And I think it's been nice to see the slow phased returns of crowds up until the new Tier 4 restrictions, mainly below the border. There's been a couple up here. I know that Ross County and Aberdeen had a couple of games, I believe. So I'm going to ask Bruce, because I know he shared an interesting article with us about the crowds returning to football games. So Bruce, do you want to let us know about that?
Yeah. So it was last night when we were kind of all talking about this going forward and stuff. I found this article on it was BBC Sports Scotland, and it was around Jason Leach, Professor Jason Leach, and he was saying that if all things being well, and he described it as if we get this right as a nation dealing with COVID-19, that he was saying that fans could hopefully return next season. He's looking at September, the whole country being vaccinated, but how long's a piece of string? You're talking 9 million doses of vaccine, and that's a massive logistical issue in itself. But that's what the lower leagues below the Championship suspended until at least the 14th of February. It's going to be probably suspended after that because it's looking at the prevalence and where the virus is at in the community, and it's it's just one of those things. However, Hugh Pennington was saying that fans will be able to see Scotland face England at Euro 2020 if the state of play is going to be 10% below the current levels. So that's what summer. So we'll just have to see how things go. But it's an optimistic, blurry picture at the moment for those people who are sitting at home looking at the four walls, just wanting to get back to seeing their team play. Do you know what I mean? But what's interesting, I think, worth noting is that the Australian Open is going to be played in front of fans. So, a bit of comparison there. I don't know what you guys think of that.
Well, I would say I think it's probably best that we do keep the kind of not letting the fans in just yet, because obviously we tried that before, and which kind of led us into 2 more lockdowns. I'm not saying those were the main causes of those the extra 2 lockdowns, but if we would have just kind of kept it away from the fans and like kind of kept a tighter kind of lockdown, we might be in a position where the Australian Open or the football games might be getting played in front of the fans, like the Australian Open is getting played in front of the fans. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. James, you're a season ticket holder.
Yep.
What's your thoughts?
Well, I think the point that you said about the vaccinations is very important. The 9 million target that Jason Leach mentioned, the United Kingdom as a whole have already vaccinated over 8 million people in the space of just over a month. So once the vaccines continue to roll out, the more accessible ones, so AstraZeneca, which is fridge temperature compared to frozen temperature, that will get the vaccine rollout. And then if they are durable for the new strains of the virus, then you're at a stage where a good number of the population is going to be vaccinated, even before the start or before the end of this season. And it says that after the first vaccine, you've got a 70% rate of being fine from the virus. Terminology just went up my head, but you'll be fine from the virus, and then you get herd immunity built through that. And then the 30% who do not have the immunity from the virus, you'll then have, you won't still get it seriously compared to without the vaccine. So if the most vulnerable in society have been vaccinated, then there is a real question being asked: do we open things back up to normal? Not just football stadiums, but a wider society. So I think it might even be before the end of the season, which means that Bob might be able to see his team lift the trophy.
I think I did my wee scouting around on Twitter today, and as Twitter is, there's a mixed bag, mixed reviews, and it was shared by the article. So some of the feedback coming back in from football fans is, well, if the most vulnerable are vaccinated, then surely people can get back in. There's mixed opinion. People saying that Scottish football surely can't start next season if there's no fans, because some clubs have hard decisions to be making this summer with, the money that's been going in and out of some of the clubs. Some people saying they'll be surprised if fans are back at the start of next season. So there is, mixed opinion. And yeah, let's quickly hit on that. The clubs having to make tough decisions over summer. Gavin, what's your thoughts on that? Your club's playing in the Championship. They're one of the ones that have been allowed to stay playing.
You had to get that one, didn't you?
Yep.
I think that clubs had to make hard decisions last year, especially in Scottish football, when they decided, wrongfully in my opinion, to end the season prematurely. I don't know if anyone else thought it, but
it was a brilliant decision.
Don't have an issue.
You would say that, eh? And like Hearts had the documentary on BBC Scotland. I don't know if anyone else saw it.
Yeah, it was
It was a 3-part.
It was good.
I thought it was really, really good, really informative, and it let you see a different side of football. As we've seen, like Sunderland to die, the All or Nothing series with Manchester City and Tottenham. Again, it was nice to see a different side, and it's nice to see it in Scottish football as well. But as a Hearts fan, I know that watching that, there was quite a lot of raw emotions for many Hearts fans, and it was, having to get relegated, losing revenue, losing, in my opinion, was a very good manager in Daniel Stendhal. We were starting to turn our form around, but unfortunately, he never got kept on. We went with an experienced Championship manager in Nielsen, and so far results have been not consistent enough for myself. But we've done well. We're still sitting top of the league, and so I think that a lot of teams had to take drastic action last season in order to keep running. I know that the figures have been released for the finances in football recently for the last season, and I know that many teams have made losses, obviously due to the crowds and such, and a lot of prize money not getting paid out in full because the games weren't all played. But for it to happen again, and for more people to lose their jobs, not just in sports or in football, but in every sector, the job cuts are happening. There's a lot of tough decisions having to get made, and at the end of the day, the club is a business, and the ones who are in the hot seat need to do what's right for the business in order to make it run sustainably.
I think I actually wrote that down, and I was going to come back to it later on when we come at a different topic. The loss of revenue from this is going to be, as Matt is huge. It's going to be huge as well going forward. Which I won't talk too much about it right now, but in another topic coming up, obviously I'll talk about that massive and the loss of revenue. But it doesn't. Yeah, there's a few other things I need to say on it. I'll wait just now though, because I'll give all my material too early.
Just quickly before, just to tie. Oh, when you go, Martin.
That's right.
Just to quickly tie off this topic before we move on. It's thinking about those difficult decisions of what Gav said around. The decisions that have been made. What are clubs going to have to do if fans aren't getting back? For the start of next season, what are clubs going to have to do before they start hustling people for season ticket money?
Sack Lennon.
Who wants to come in on that one?
Well, Dundee United have already asked for extra money for their fans a couple of times, and I know a few Falkirk season ticket holders who want stays.
No, you didn't. There's none of them.
I know both of them, and and they have bought season tickets, and they have went into the shop and they bought merchandise, and I think that is saving a lot of clubs, because not all the fans, because obviously a lot of fans have lost their job and aren't in a financial position to do it, but a lot of fans are still paying the season tickets. They're still buying the merchandise. They're still putting money into the club. You're not getting your through the game sales tickets, but you're not having to pay for security and stuff as well. So the fans are trying to help the ones that are able to. Hopefully it's enough. There's not been many teams going out the box yet. So
I think on that topic, Martin. Sorry, before I tear up there, but I think I'm going to do something I don't normally do, and that's praise James's team and Spurs and how they have went about the fans in terms of as a fan base. They had two cup ties against lower league opposition, and on both occasions, because they couldn't buy tickets, they went and they spent thousands and thousands of their money, pounds of their money, on the other team's merchandise because they weren't going to get any ticket revenue. I believe one of the teams was Marine. I can't remember what the second team was. Maybe you can help me out with the figures and such if you know them. No, okay.
I think what's interesting, Gav, is the contrast in James's teams to so Spurs have been quite good with their fans. However, we've heard nothing but public outcry from Celtic about the way their fans have been treated, the season ticket holders. So, yeah, I don't mean to keep bringing it to Celtic, James. What's your opinion as a Celtic season ticket holder? What are clubs going to have to do to keep the fans on side before they start hustling them for Celtic for season ticket money? Because Celtic there's been a big outcry on the way the season ticket holders have been treated by the club.
Yes, there's a lot to answer that question. I think the first one is make a decision about the manager. When you're going to have season ticket sales start coming in a couple of months' time. If Lennon's still the manager, and still hasn't been announced that he's leaving, a lot of fans will be disengaged. Peter Lawwell leaving, start of something. But on fan engagement as well, Celtic TV's coverage hasn't really been up to scratch. I think part of that is because of the negativity within the fan base, and you're not going to have Jerry McCulloch giving Lennon the biggest scrutiny in the interview. So the fact that the feel-good factor of the TV is not matching the results has left a lot of fans disengaged. So maybe some honesty and reality from the TV coverage, and being more honest about the bad performances would engage the fans.
I think when we're talking about sort of trying to engage the fans and trying to find out how getting money out of the fans, that's really what it is. I think a lot of people need to realise that maybe not Rangers. Well, I say maybe not Rangers and Celtic. I was going to say that clubs might not exist if fans do not put money in. But
again, it's a true fact. We saw that in 2012.
But I think that outside of the old firm, I'll go with that. Outside of the old firm, if fans do not invest their money, then their club will not continue, and that's down to how much they want their club to continue or not. And obviously, I don't know why I dug this hole.
It's the top.
Keep digging.
But obviously, Scotland's most successful club continues as it always has done, and you can
trying
check
to find the pound coin, or maybe we have to buy that club.
You can check the UEFA website if you want any more information on that, as well as the Advertising Authority, the SPFL, the SFA, and any other authority in football.
Well, but that's a very, very good unbiased position there, mate. I think that actually brings, not the last bit from Robert, but before that, the conversation brings us really well onto our second topic, and that's the pressures and difficulties of owning, running, being a member of the hierarchy of football clubs in today's climate. Hard decisions that need to get taken. Of course, Robert, you are our businessman of the group, or attempt to be the businessman of the group. You're saying about clubs have to get fans to part with their monies. You have to do that on a daily basis as part of your work. Apart from it's not fans, it's punters. What's your opinion as the sort of businessman of the group, of how hard it is and the difficulties that the hierarchy of teams are facing for the past year?
I think football, at its very core, football is just another business, and certainly to the people that own these clubs and run them. Yeah, aye. To the people that own the clubs and run them, it is just business. They're very rarely fans, certainly in England anyway. But what the challenge with football is getting your customer on board. In football, it is results-based. That it is absolutely results-based, and nothing else. The people that buy the tickets for football clubs only care about trophies. That is all they care about. They don't care about anything else, generally. So you need to be producing that, and if you're not, you're in trouble. Like, obviously, this goes on to Peter Lawwell leaving Celtic, and Mackay taking over. One of the biggest challenges that Mackay is going to have is that there's a divide in Celtic just now, and that divide comes from one man, one ginger man who sits in the dugout, and he has to go. He is the one thing that is not bringing the club together. And if he doesn't go, then Mackay is already he's already in a bad place. So he has to get rid of him. But running, and one of the things that I was thinking about how I was going to talk about this topic, one of the things that keeps coming to my mind is the objectives of the managing director or the chief executive are not the same as the objectives as the football manager or the players. They're different, completely different. And trying to get those two areas to come together is an absolute uphill task, certainly in today's football. Today's football is built on finance. It's built on spending money on players. You just need to look down in England. There's not a Premier League club that any less than 10 million on a player is considered nothing down there. It's absolutely nothing. So expenditure is linked to performance. And when you have a high level of expenditure, you need to have that has to be met by a high level of income. And then that goes back to performance. So Dominic Mackay's got a job on his hands, as does every CEO of a football club, outside of maybe St Mirren, who are pretty good at the minute.
Oh dear.
So I think, I think it's a tough job. How do you get fans to part with their money? It's going to be a big investment. He's going to have to throw a lot of money at it because he has to. The results have to come. If the results don't come, the fans won't come. I'm surprised that he's taken the job on, if I'm honest. I think that in his background, I had a look at his background with the Pro 14, Guinness Pro 14. That league has grown phenomenally recently. So he has a good pedigree about him, but he is going into a job that there's more to be done than there is sort of not to be done. I feel like there's not going to be a day where he can just sit down and not have to do anything. But his first email has to be to get rid of Lennon, because Lennon is the one thing that is dividing Celtic at the minute. But I'd be interested, James, you're this whole running a football club comes quite neatly into Celtic. So I'd be interested to get your opinion on what you think Mackay's first move has to be, and what sort of job he's got ahead of him.
I'll pick you up on one point. Lennon's the only thing uniting the fans at the moment, because the fans want him out. I don't think there's one Celtic fan now saying that he's a Lennon in person, and if he is, it's a very brave man. But I think I would take a different approach from you, Bob, because I think the first thing that Dominic Mackay needs to do is appoint a director of football or sporting director. Because Peter Lawwell, for all his success at Celtic, he has made Celtic sustainably financial, particularly during when he came into Celtic, there was a lot of debt, similar levels to Rangers Football Club. And then Celtic cut the debt, the other team didn't, and we saw what happened. So Peter Lawwell needs a lot of thanking for that from Celtic fans. And then that led to a period of unprecedented success, a quadruple treble, I must remind everyone. But Peter Lawwell, one thing that he did, which annoyed a lot of fans, was mingle in transfers. And I know the CEO has a role to play in transfers because of the finances. But when it comes to an extra £250,000 for John McGinn, surely you can chuck that when you're making £20 million profit. And then that upset Brendan Rodgers. And I'm not saying Brendan left because of that. He left because Leicester's an attractive offer. But you soured the relationship with the management. And Dominic Mackay doesn't have football experience. And a lot of Celtic fans are saying, oh, that's a bad thing. But I think it's a positive thing. He's done a lot of good work in rugby on the commercial side. sponsorship of Murrayfield, the Pro 14 League, getting big teams having events in Murrayfield. So he's done a very good side on that. And if he can get Celtic doing something similar, that would be beneficial to the club. But then getting a football man in who knows football, has an overarching philosophy, particularly when it comes to youth development. Celtic have great facilities at Lennox Town, but yet we've got Karamoko Dembele, Oko Flex, Cameron Harper all looking to leave. We've just had Frimpong leave as well, and 19-year-old, very talented, but left. And there's something happening at Celtic Football Club where these young players don't think they can progress from the academy to the youth team or to the first team. And then if they're in the first team, they don't think they can progress. So there's a big culture that needs to be changed at Celtic, and getting a director of football to oversee the culture and appoint the new manager, I think, is what Dominic Mackay needs to do.
Yeah, I meant to. I was going to say I've read a lot about a lot of people saying that he doesn't have any football experience. So how can he come to this? I think what is important to remember is, I was going to say this should not be a football role. This isn't a role in football. This is a role in company management and branding and in creating revenue streams as well. It's not a you're not a football person coming into this role. You need to have a proven track record in business, in sport, elite sport. But yeah, I meant to mention as well. Yeah, the director of football. That's a massive role, because that is where the chief executive or the managing director steps away, and there has to be somebody there who knows what the chief executive doesn't know, which is the football part. So yeah, I think.
Do you think the sacking of the manager will fix all issues?
No.
Do you not think that the attitude of players needs to change as well?
No, I don't think it'll fix all the issues, but what it will do is, like James was saying, Lennon, Mackay needs the money. He needs the season ticket money to come back. And if Lennon is there, that money will not come back. So he has to go. How they go about that is up to themselves, but he has to go, because if he doesn't go, then money will not come back.
Bob, just to come in on that, because you and I, I've spoke to you many occasions recently about Dominic Mackay. We've had the odd phone call and stuff, and we've had a good wee conversation about him. So I went and did research just like everyone else has done, read up on the man, and he's only 42, and this is a massive job. To get it at 42 years old, to go and prove yourself, and he's already proven himself in Scottish rugby, but Celtic is an institution. It's a global brand. It's it is a machine, and I found out what I found quite interesting when I was reading that might actually suit Celtic was he was actually communications director of public affairs, which might actually suit Celtic down to the ground to get some nice clear line of communication coming out of Parkhead. So it would be quite nice if his that kind of influence rubbed off there. But he's been in business. He was in SRU from when he was 29. He's well versed in everything, and more importantly, he's a Celtic fan as well. So it's whether that gets blurred though. Where does the straight thinking and the fan thinking, not overlap? But I think it's a good appointment for Celtic, and he's got his head screwed on. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, he is a Celtic fan, but being a Celtic fan is not paying his salary. Running the company,
but
so you have
sometimes you can think too personal. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you can. So it's as long as that doesn't get in the way.
But he also understands the ethos of the club. You were saying that Celtic is an institution, but first and foremost, Celtic were founded as a charity, and our charitable work is very important to Celtic. And it would be very easy for a businessman to put that aside. It makes the club no money. It's good PR and does help a lot of people, but in tough financial times, it's an area where it could be cut if you're being harsh at just looking at the accounts. but Dominic Mackay will understand that charity is at the heart of Celtic, and hopefully he'll improve the charitable work of the Celtic Foundation.
I think to go in
Is
the
the
back
Celtic
of,
Foundation not also like 100% of the, like? Is it not the fans though? So the fans being on side's important.
Yes, but there is obviously a relationship with the club and the club promoting it and so on.
Yeah.
Gav, what was it you were going to say something there?
yeah, I was going to say, I think on the back of James saying about the John McGinn throwing a bit extra money, and yourself, Robert, saying about the results-driven business kind of side of things. It's easy for us to sit here in our world of Football Manager and FIFA and not actually understand the role and the kind of harshness of the job. And I think there's been a lot of recent managerial changes, which Shannon obviously touched on. Would that one thing fix all the issues? We've had Lennon staying when a lot of fans have been crying for him to go. You've got the change of Frank Lampard at Chelsea, which again a lot of fans wanted to stay, so it's the opposite side of things. You've got Gary Holt resigning from Livingston, and then you've got the Alex Dyer mutual consent leaving of Kilmarnock. And what I find there is that you've got three very different ways of it being communicated, and you've got a sacking, resigning, and a mutual consent. My question is how mutual was that, considering how poor Kilmarnock's results have been. In terms of for Livingston, David Martindale's done a fantastic job since he's went in, so that has benefited them. With Chelsea, there's still time will tell. There's been a couple of games played, both positive results in the whole. My question to everyone is there a right time to get rid of a manager? And if so, when is that right time, basically?
I think getting rid of Lennon is... I don't think getting rid of him is the problem. It's trying to get somebody to come in to do the job when he leaves. Because coming into Celtic right now, you're coming into a 23-point gap between your biggest rivals. You're coming into a team who are about to lose their chief executive. You're coming into a team whose fans are absolutely, united against their hatred towards the one person. So the job of getting rid of Lennon is as easy as getting rid of any employee who's not performing. But replacing them is a big problem, because whoever comes in will always be known as the manager who lost the 10. In some people's eyes, possibly not as strongly now as what they would have been had it been 3 months ago. But they will be known as a manager who lost the 10, and that's not an attractive option for anybody, really. I think what I was saying about Lennon going, Lennon going ties into a lot of things. Football, and when I said football is a results business, I didn't just mean that in the aspect of the fans. Football is a results business because if the results aren't good, advertisers do not want to be associated with that. Kit manufacturers do not want to be making a kit for a team that are failing. Sort of big sponsors, they don't want to be on a top of a team that are getting kicked out of Europe in the first, or are finishing last in their group. So is getting rid of Lennon and the results having to take an upturn is not just for the fans, it's for the kit manufacturers, it's for the advertisers, it's for all the revenue streams in the full club. So that's why they need to get rid of him, because his poor results will have a negative impact on the next manufacturing deal for their tops, or the next sponsorship for their team, etc.
I don't think there is like a right time or a wrong time for a manager to be sacked, but I think this particular kind of term, like being COVID and the kind of transition of playing with fans and playing with no fans, and transition of new players coming in, shouldn't be the time when managers aren't able to, or given the chance to prove themselves and like kind of get those new players that have came in to fully integrate into the team. Like we've seen with Chelsea sacking Lampard, I think he should have been given more time, personally, because Kai Havertz and Timo Werner were still adjusting to the team. They weren't performing, but because it was his decision to bring them in, the board decided that he was the one to go. So, Joe, do you think it was right for Lampard to be sacked then?
I think when you look at, as Bob said, when you look at, there's different situations, as like Gav says, well, like the mutual sack and that. Lampard getting sacked is a sore one as a fan, because obviously he is a legend of the club.
Yeah.
But I also think, as you said, he's had 4 months with basically bringing in 6 or 7 players with no pre-season, and they've sacked him and brought Tuchel in so they can turn it around and get back into top 4. Tuchel's only got 4 or 5 months, and he's now got to find his formation, find his 11. So it's just kind of they've kind of not moved. They've moved sideways rather than going forward or back.
Exactly. I don't think they've actually kind of given Lampard the chance to take that year and see how the results end. Like maybe at the end of the season, if the results still haven't been kind of constant, then fair enough. But just as you said, like as a Chelsea fan, you see like Lampard is a legend. So do you think, this question to everyone, do you think he's actually like kind of tarnished his legacy a little bit?
No, I don't think his legacy has not been tarnished, because in 2 ways. A, his first season, he overachieved, and I think that's come back to hurt him a bit. And the second is the fans still love him. It wasn't like it was like when Mourinho got sacked for the 3rd time and they were sitting down in 10th or something like that, or were sitting like bottom half of the table, or we were relegation favourites like Arsenal a few months ago. We weren't in a bad position. We just had hit a bad run, a bad patch, and I think part of the problem was Lampard's fact that he didn't decide on an 11. We chopped and changed, especially the front 4 or 5. We chopped and changed so much that there was no consistency. Whereas other teams, like you look at, say Celtic, for example, there's been a bit more consistency in some of their selections. But again, you look at Lennon and you look at their back 3, like your goalie and their centre backs. How many different combinations has he played this season? And you look at it and go, surely if he just went, I know he's in a bad form, stuck it, they might have played themselves into form. They might have also absolutely got destroyed like they have. But you look at it and you go, has the manager made that wrong decision with formation? Yeah. And then with Celtic, as Bob said, if they bring someone in, it's going to be the person who lost the 10. So I think if they bite the bullet, I think they might be biting the bullet and giving Lennon to the end of the season. So when they sack him, they've got a very good reason. You cost us 10.
Like I get that, but I think Chelsea just always rush into like bringing a new manager, because since 1986, as a start that I read, Man U have had only 5 managers. Since 1986, Arsenal have had only 5 managers, and since 1986, Chelsea have had 21 managers, with two managers doing 2 terms. So I think they're not giving enough chance to the managers to actually kind of prove themselves. So Alex Ferguson, like for Man U, he got his time to kind of prove himself first, and then he became a legend at Man U. Same with Arsene Wenger, and I guess Jose Mourinho got that chance at Chelsea as well. But even including him, there's still been 21 different managers. You know what I mean?
It's a culture. Where you go, Gav?
No, yes, you go first, Martin.
It's been a culture thing for Chelsea for a wee while. I mean, how unhappy were the fans when Di Matteo left?
Exactly.
I mean, Di Matteo was in short term, won the Champions League. The thing that the manager before was at, who was before Matteo? Was at,
it was Mourinho.
Mourinho couldn't get the Champions League, and he left because he couldn't get the Champions League. Matteo got the Champions League. He got sacked anyway.
Yeah. Not winning the Premier League.
Benitez won Europa and something else, and then he got sacked. There has been there's a level that Abramovich is asking for that's just not been attainable for any of the managers at Chelsea.
But do you not think he just kind of lower his expectations sometimes? Because obviously, yeah, Chelsea's a brilliant club, but they're not going to achieve all three cups or all cups in that season. They're going to lose something.
I think part of the problem that Chelsea have got as well is that their business model is very, very expenditure heavy. Like they if they do not get top four and European football, then they are in a problem. They've got a massive problem. So I think that's what panics Abramovich. Because their overheads are huge, and because they've spent so much money, if they don't get that level, and if they don't get that funds back in, they've got a problem. And it's the same problem that I hate going back to Scottish football because the Chelsea fight. This is quite interesting to talk about Chelsea, but it's the same problem that Rangers had pre 2006 or whatever it was. If Rangers did not get European football every year, then we had a huge problem, and that became obvious in 2012. The loss of the finance in football, and it's so fragile. If you lose the biggest revenue stream, your club crumbles, and that is a Chelsea problem. I think Chelsea need.
But you say that, right? But they don't give like people have a chance at the club. They're now trying to get Haaland as well to try and get that better results, but they're not giving the people that are already there a chance to actually prove themselves.
I think that's the thing. I don't think they can risk it. They can't risk giving people time, because if they give people time and it gets to a point of no return, then they are losing. Abramovich needs to put his hand in his pocket, and which he doesn't mind doing. That was obvious when Celtic were formed in 2003 or whatever it was. But Chelsea were formed in 2003, but they don't. They need to. They don't have time. They don't have time to give a manager any time. They need to be going in the right direction from kickoff. And if that isn't happening, they need to change before it gets to a point where they can't. It's too late. And you can tell that Abramovich has made that decision because it's a very key lesson in business. If something isn't working, change it straight away. Don't continue with it, because it could end up costing you a lot of money. And it comes straight out of a business textbook, that getting rid of him. Abramovich has got rid of him because he's not working and he's going to cost him a lot of money.
So Gavin, do you think? Sorry. Go on,
I was just saying, just as your club was formed in 2012. But I think one point here about Lampard, which hasn't been made. I think Lampard did a fantastic job last season when he had the young players, Mason Mount, Reece James, even Hudson-Odoi. They come to mind. And I'm saying that with the shirt that I'm wearing. He did a fantastic job. But then the summer changed everything. He opened the checkbook. I still don't think it was Lampard who signed, who wanted those signings. He got the players. And then once he lost that control, he struggled, because he didn't know how to manage the playing styles, and what reports are saying, he didn't manage the personalities. He had 3 left backs of good quality. Marcus Alonso apparently fell out with Lampard, soured dressing room relations, as well as other players. And I think that's one thing that football fans don't talk about enough, the difference between a coach and a manager. I think Frank Lampard is a fantastic coach, might even be a fantastic head of youth development. But I don't know if he's a manager for a top team yet.
I guess he's not actually had enough experience in a managerial role to do.
So yeah, when Chelsea depends so much on revenue from getting the top 4, as Robert was saying, I think it probably was the correct decision. I don't know if Thomas Tuchel was the correct man, but I think getting rid of Lampard for Chelsea's long-term ambitions was probably the correct choice.
So, Gavin, do you think Thomas Tuchel is the right man then? Do you think he can make the difference? Do you think he can turn around, bring us to top 4?
I think this is the hard question for a Chelsea fan to answer, because when being a Chelsea fan, as Martin said, it's a culture. The managerial change every 18 months or so. You get used to it. And as Robert was saying, it does bring results because they look for the trophies, look for the finances that Champions League football brings in. But from a Chelsea fan's point of view, from my point of view, when Lampard was appointed, it was as if there was a change in philosophy at Chelsea. I know there's a YouTube channel I watch for Chelsea fans that's run by George Benson. He's a high-profile YouTuber. He's a Chelsea fan, and he had the same sort of idea of it. It looked like something was changing in Chelsea. We were going to have a long-term development, a project, as what has been said by the media, and the fans bought into it straight away because of how well Lampard did at Derby, but also his reputation amongst fans and how well he did in the first season. As Mitchell said, he overachieved. He did more than anyone thought he would do with the transfer embargo, with the young players. But then, as James said, he opened the checkbook. I don't think it was his decision to bring players in. And I think he got told to play certain players in certain times because they weren't getting enough appearances or enough time on the pitch. So I think that was a struggle with the loss of control. Is Tuchel the right man who's came in? I think since he's came in, he's changed tactics, and we've seen 2 good games from a Chelsea perspective where we've kept clean sheets, which has always been a big issue for Chelsea recently in the past sort of 2-3 years. And his tactics seem to work that way. I think his tactics are very similar to what they were when we had Antonio Conte, with playing the 3 at the back with 2 wing backs. But I think today's game especially, where you saw, again, it was a good mix of the superstars that we've spent the money on and the younger players who've been coming through. But the thing with Chelsea is that we have such a strong squad in terms of depth. You aren't going to be able to play everyone. And to back up your stat, you said, Shahan, there was one of the commentators said today about Azpilicueta, longest serving player, been there for 9 years. He's been under 12 different managers in his time. It is just what people got used to, and Tuchel getting signed on an 18-month contract. Will he be there longer than that? I don't think so. He's not. I don't think he'll be there for long term. I honestly can't see Chelsea having a manager longer than 18 months, 2 years now, especially after they've got rid of Lampard.
I think that just kind of brings. Oh, sorry, Mitchell.
I totally agree with Gav. And when you look at as I say, like we thought the project, like you seen it at the back end of Sarri's time when Sarri was having to play your Loftus Cheeks, your Tammy Abraham, your Loftus Cheeks, your younger players, your Reece James. I think who else was there? I can't remember. But Loftus Cheek was one of them. Like you had to start playing the young players, and you saw Loftus Cheek starting to flourish, and you saw his men that Sarri brought in, like Jorginho, taking a back seat, and it took the pressure off them. And it worked. And then when Lampard came in, he brought Mount from Derby, and I think over the last 2 games, even under Tuchel, Mount has been one of, if not the best player on the pitch for us. And you look at today's game, the 2 best players on the pitch were Hudson-Odoi and Mount. So that's our young players again. It's not these superstars still aren't performing. And in my opinion, Werner is trying his best. He's almost trying too hard. Like with the one he missed that came right at him, you could see he was just trying too hard to hit it, so he's missed it. But Havertz, I've not seen a lot from. Ziyech, I think Ziyech has got a goal with it. I think he does perform, but I think some of the players around him aren't used to him, haven't got the connections. Like I go back to the SuperBowl, or when Lampard came in, you had Jorginho at pivot and Abraham up front. Ball comes into Jorginho, first time pass, no looking, whips it 30 yards in behind for Tammy to run onto. We've not had that connection still, and I think these new players have kind of disrupted the connections that were there, and it does feel like they've been shoehorned in two positions that they don't work?
I think there's a few things with obviously, first of all, the manager's not picking players that'll come and play for the teams. I mean, obviously, there's been managers, Romanov at Hertz, who would go out and sign players, and who else? The guy at Man United,
Woodward.
Ed Woodward. He signed a few players that the manager hasn't wanted. I think he had the choice of whether to take Lindelof or Van Dijk, and he took Lindelof. There's a lot of decisions are made boardroom, and then managers just got to deal with, because the manager isn't a long-term position anymore. The club comes first, so the board will decide on the players, because the players will be there longer than the manager in a lot of aspects. It's gone to the times of Alex Ferguson, where he was one game away from losing his job at one point in the mid-80s, and he was able to pull it back and keep going. It's extremely difficult to say that would have happened for Lampard, obviously, but there is that sort of possibility where you've got, like James said as well, you've got different types of managers. You've got a Mourinho who likes to come in, spend a lot of money, and he'll win trophy. That's unless he goes to Spurs, obviously. Where a lot of the time we only get a chance to spend money because Daniel Levy won't. But you've got a Mourinho who'll come in and do that. You've got Eddie Howe, who he's from ground level right up. He wants to change the youth facilities. He wants to change this. He wants to change the dietary things. He wants a whole project to go right through. And it's the difference of what you actually want as a club, as a team. And unfortunately, I like the aspect of having that manager long term, where he's responsible. He's had the time to be responsible for everything. He's got the whole system. He's got the youth level where he wants it, right through, and it suits him and the club. Chelsea aren't that club. Chelsea are wanting a Mourinho style, unfortunately, which I didn't see as the way forward at the time. And I'm assuming that would be the sort of manager that a lot of people are wanting. There is certain specific job managers, Sam Allardyce, Tony Pulis, and they seem to just be your bottom of the table, we'll get him because he'll keep us up managers. I don't see them getting a bigger team job, but I don't see Mourinho being able to do their job because it's not his type of. It's not type. If Mourinho went in at West Brom with no money to spend, I can't see him being able to do anything with it. He's not a man-to-man coach who could get the best out of the players he's got. He wants to formulate a plan and get top players in to do it.
So, big sporting event coming up in the form of the Super Bowl next Sunday. So I want to know, round table, who you have to win, the Kansas City Chiefs or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll go for James first.
It's a tough one. It's a battle of generations.
Stop giving a trophy answer, come on.
Oh, look, you've got Tom Brady, obviously. I'm not going to call him the GOAT because I am a Colts fan and my loyalties lie with Peyton Manning. But he is one of the best ever players ever to have played in the NFL versus Mahomes, who is up and coming and could tackle Brady's record. My gut instinct says that even though there's no such thing as home advantage in a Super Bowl, Tampa's got home advantage. And I think that might just get them over the edge, as well as Brady's 6th Super Bowl experience.
Okay, Robert?
The Buccaneers, are they the ones with the pirate boat in the stadium?
Yes, the ones with the pirate boat in the stadium.
They are the ones.
Yeah, I'm going Buccaneers.
Just for the stadium. Mitchell?
I'm with James. It's a tough one, and just going on the previous championship games, Brady threw 3 interceptions and yet somehow still won the game. Mahomes battled on after concussion the week before and a sore toe. So I think just in given the rosters, I think I'd go for Tampa Bay because they've overall got a better defense and have done over the season, and I think their vast array of talent and weapons can overcome Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey because I think the Tampa defense can shut down the running game and make it a really hard day for them to throw on every play.
Sorry for jumping in. Just one on the the boat. I need to get this in. I think Ibrox should get a boat because Rangers are absolutely cruising it this year.
Not because they're pirates.
They've stole 10 in a row.
So I think the next person we're going to ask is Martin. Now, Martin, let's find out what one you want to win for the colour of the strip.
Yes, what colour are the strips?
It's white and red and gold, and then red and black.
Right, so what is it? Pirates against is it Chiefs?
The Chiefs, yeah.
Well, it's Buccaneers.
I reckon if a pirate and a chief were fighting, I think a pirate would win. Pull out his sword and stab him. I'm going to go with a pirate.
If you're saying the Buccaneers, then
that's the bellies, yeah.
We'll go to Bruce next. So everyone said Buccaneers so far.
Well,
will you keep the same?
As everybody knows in this podcast, I am a massive LA Rams fan and have been for about 2 or 3 weeks now. In the past 2 or 3 weeks, I'm the biggest LA Rams fan going. I've been looking at merchandise, how to ship it over, getting to every game.
Sports Direct, mate. Sports Direct.
Wait. Disclaimer: other sports shops are available.
We don't.
Yes,
we
there are other
don't
sports
talk about
shops
Sports Direct.
available,
That's a sore wound to be licking.
From Newcastle.
I'm gonna be the odd one out and say Chiefs because they've been on my pickings for day one, and that's the way it's going to stay.
Okay, and Shahan, I think out of everyone, you probably have, well, maybe not Mitchell. I think you and Mitchell are probably par for your NFL knowledge.
Yeah. Well,
who would you go with?
I'm not gonna Rams and Philadelphia Eagles fan, so neither of them made it, unfortunately.
Two teams.
Yeah, I know they're two different teams, but I've got family in both areas, so that's the reason I have affiliation.
Pick one basketball team, pick one American football team.
But I think Buccaneers will win this. Even though Chiefs are trying to reclaim their title from last year, but I think Buccaneers will take it.
Am I legit the odd one out here?
Yeah, you're legit.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. But I
didn't even pick
join
either
you,
of the teams. I didn't pick either of the teams to go into the Super Bowl. Anyways, I had Green Bay Packers and Bills. So
that's what I had.
Same.
So it's going to be a Chiefs win.
It's a Chiefs win. Yeah, Gav and I are going to win this.
Bruce, I'm going to go with Chiefs because I think that Mahomes he has showed over the past kind of 2 seasons that he's ready to dethrone Brady.
Tenor on this,
in my opinion. But I think that's it for my guys. I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming. I hope we all enjoyed it.
awesome.
It was a very good chat, and again next week we'll get a couple of interesting topics. Hopefully, this week of sporting events and topics we'll throw something interesting our way. And so I think all that's left to say is thanks to everyone for tuning in, for watching. We'll be back next week, as I said. We'll discuss all the events and topics that unfold in the sporting world. And all that's left to say is goodbye and stay safe.
And subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook.
It's a Sports Hurt podcast.
And remember to watch 5 guys who know nothing about sport next week.